Good morning, CLC.
Good morning.
I am going to be joined in this morning's Inner Healing Meditation by Christina Northorford. Okay, I got a thumbs up. So I feel okay with that. So please join me in this moment, at this time, just loving yourself. Go ahead and take a nice deep cleansing breath in, breathing in the cool, calming oxygen that surrounds you. And as you release the breath, release all that no longer serves you. Allow your body to relax in this moment. Let go of any thoughts of the past or future. Go ahead and take another nice, deep, cleansing breath in. And as you release this breath, allow your mind to be here, now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own. For your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply. filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one very special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me. I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in this room or on this planet anymore. I turn to that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in this room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
I brought a book today because Reverend David, when he gave his talk a few weeks ago, he said, I'm forever reading to you. And I read you long, tedious passages. And I thought, I really don't do that, but I think I'll start. He gave me the idea. Now, I buy books at an alarming rate, and I have them often for a while before I get around to reading them. Because there's a backlog, because of the alarming rate I accumulate them at. But some years ago I read something and it mentioned Rufus Jones, and I thought I must look this man up, and eventually I did. And then I got the essential writings, and it sat on my bookshelf for, 5-6 years, pre-COVID anyway. And then something said, because I talk to my books this way, and I said, show me if anybody out there would want to hear more of you. And they do, and they'll fall off the shelf at me, and this did. And so now you're getting it. With a little bit of Gnosticism thrown in, not so much today, but in the next couple of Sundays, next 3 Sundays of the month. Let me mention also, I noticed the fall lamps are lit. For those of you who are watching us at a distance who don't live in South Texas, you have no idea how exciting it was for us this morning to step out our doors and the temperature's in the low 60s. We have been waiting a really long time for this. Those of you in the room, if there's an empty chair next to you, which there are many, it represents not a shameful thing, but somebody is out there cavorting with the God of nature. And this is perfectly all right, provided they send in their tithe. So, just kidding. Maybe not. Anyway, so when I teach something out of a book by somebody I'm not familiar with, the first litmus test, maybe the only one, is, do I agree with this? And it's not, that sounds kind of haughty. Do I have to agree with it? Well, I have to agree with it to bring it to you on a Sunday, because it's sort of officially representing our teaching here. And when I find somebody who's not a New Thought person, wasn't a New Thought person, but was de facto, coming from a parallel spiritual tradition, who says things not only beautifully, but says them in some cases better than our literature says it. I absolutely have to tell you about it. And so that's Rufus Jones, the Quaker mystic. And today what he's sharing with us out of a large section of this little book, I have him upside down here, all the blood's going to run to his head. He's talking about divine correspondence. And this is a very useful idea for us. And the long run of this series, and every series we do here, is about practical spirituality. This is a teaching of practical spirituality. Practical spirituality does not mean simplistic spirituality, does not mean dumbed down spirituality. It means it's something that's useful, that you can take out into the marketplace, that you can take home, that you can take to school, that you can take on vacation with you, and have it work for you, and have it companion you through every kind of experience, every kind of change that you go through in your life. You want something steady. You want something steady by way of spiritual life. And all that requires from you and me is a regular spiritual practice. A regular spiritual practice. Rather than the kind of thing where in case of emergency break glass. Where, wow, I haven't prayed in years, but maybe if I bring out that practice in this current catastrophe, maybe it'll make a difference. Well, it will, but it won't make nearly the difference it would have if, let me put it this way. As Emma Hopkins put it, it's a wonderful thing to extract your head from the lion's jaw, but how much better a thing it is to have never gotten your head into the lion's jaw to start with. So we use prayer to stay on a steady course in life. We use spiritual practice to remind ourselves constantly of who we are, even when the wolf is not at the door. And the wolf does not need to be at the door. The wolf can get fed in the ways that wolves do without coming to us for it. There's a way that life can unfold. It's easier than it is. It's never going to be completely easy. There's going to be work to be done. That's why we're here. We signed up for this, But it could be easier than we make it. See, it's part of a well-rounded spiritual practice. Well-rounded practice generally. Prayer and meditation. It includes things like diet and exercise. It includes things like what they tell you it includes. Do you get as many emails as I do about, are you aging? Here's what you need to do to take care of this. All of this started the minute, and I mean the minute I turned 50, because a certain organization for retired persons, known mostly by its initials, had my number. And that very morning, or maybe the morning before, I opened my mail, and it's like, welcome to 50. And it's just gone on from there, right? And then, next there's Medicare, and then there's this, and there's this, and they're telling, well, you need to prop this up, and you need to take care of that, and you need to do something else. Well, they're not wrong. But a context that's provided to everything else that we do is to realize that we are first and foremost spiritual beings who are wearing a body. The body needs rest, the body needs food, the body needs occasional medical attention, but we're more than the body. We're more than we seem. We're more than the emotions. We're more than the thoughts. We're more than all of this. We are the experience, and you've heard me say this countless times, we are the experience that spirit, the spiritual dimension of creation, is having of itself in this world at this time by means of us. And the more often that we can remember that, the better things work. I wondered about that. I was highly skeptical of all of this at first. My backstory in this teaching is long and convoluted, but my family was into it before I was, and when your family's into stuff, I don't care what it is, you're highly skeptical of it. When you're of a certain age, like teenagers, so you're highly skeptical of it. You could watch them walk through walls. You could watch them, manifest things out of thin air, and you'd still think they were doing it with mirrors because they're your family, And so I tested the hypothesis, but something that attracted me about this teaching was the mystical element. It said that there's a realm, what he calls the overworld, Rufus Jones. You remember Emerson? few months ago. What did he call it? The oversoul. Who does Jones reference in calling it the overworld? Emerson. He says, I love his idea of the oversoul, but to me it's slightly this. And I read both of them and I think, yeah, I agree. There is something greater than what meets the eye, but how exactly that something greater translates itself into daily life, I've been unclear on. And as I say, I was highly skeptical that it could do everything it was said to be able to do. Well, at one point, I talked to a physician who was a friend of my mother's. He was chief of surgery at the VA here, and he was a professor at Baylor College of Medicine in gastroenterology. Gastroenterology. And I asked this man, having no filters, which I still don't really, I went up to this very esteemed medical person, and I said, so, you gastroenterology, that involves things like ulcers, right? And he asked. I said, does stress cause ulcers? How much of what causes ulcers to flare up is mental and emotional, do you think? And what I expected to hear was none of it. It has all to do with diet, environment, genetics, and so on. And what I heard was most of it. And yeah, there's diet and environment and genetics, and then there's how you manage stress. There's how you manage stress. How we manage stress is a choice thing. Yes, we choose what to eat. And yes, we choose whether to exercise and get enough rest, and we choose whether to take medications, and if so, what kind. We choose those things at intervals. We choose what to think all the time. All the time. What to think, how to feel, how to manage our feelings. And managing our feelings, it took me a while to learn, is not about suppressing them. It's not about just cheering the heck up, you know, like getting over it and just plastering on a grin and being all happy all the time, no matter how you feel inside, because something's watching you and it will reward you for this, you know, this fake enthusiasm. No, not at all. It means actually honoring your feelings enough to listen to them and engage with them and let them kind of lead the way through life. And if you do that, you don't accumulate stress as much. You face the same challenges that everybody else faces, but you face them with a clear mind and an open heart more often than you don't. Also important to remember here is that we forget to do all of this from time to time, but the moment we remember, it's like we never forgot. You know, it picks back up, and we go ahead on with it. So we get scared. You see these memes and things, they'll say, well, courage is not never being afraid. Courage is being afraid and forging ahead with the thing anyway. And that's true. It's like we're going to feel fear, and we're going to feel upset, and we're going to feel confusion, and we're going to feel grief. But it's okay. It's okay. It's not going to like derail us completely. It's not going to take us off our spiritual program for very long. We're going to remember. We're going to remember something. And it's going to strengthen us, and it's also going to open our hearts and compassion to other people that are going through the same thing. Because the only time that it alarms us so much when somebody else is sitting there having a bunch of feelings next to us is when we're not willing to have our own. That's when we want to run at them with Kleenex, which is ironic because I bought a bunch of Kleenex today and brought it in here and put it on the chairs because I noticed we were running out. Okay? But that's not for feeling stuffing. That's for running noses. Because there are, with this beautiful weather that we have, and not to put it out there, but, you know, there's some pollen action going on. And some people have it coming out their face, and we want this to be a comfortable place for you to come, and so a Kleenex is a handy thing. But if you want to grab that box up and stuff it in the face of the person next to you who's sitting there because a tear has come to their eye or something, what you really want to do instead is ask yourself, what about my own feelings terrify me? And it will tell you. Now, that's the thing. Okay, so I'm reading Jones led me down some rabbit holes, as reading anybody does, you know, and it brought me to some people who are spiritual teachers, more contemporary than he is, who were featured in the film The Secret. Did you see The Secret and the follow-ups, or read the book, or the whole cottage industry of stuff that came out of that? I had some issues with The Secret I had some issues with, I don't know how it put stuff across, and it seemed a little simplistic, a little, I don't know, a little too much. That, you know, you can just manifest stuff out of thin air and your life will be great. No, what you manifest, I mean, you can do that. I don't want to say you can't do that. What I do want to say is that it's not all it's cracked up to be when it happens. Because what it ultimately amounts to is exchanging a current set of stuff for a new set of stuff. The old car goes, a new car goes, the old house, new house. There was a guy in the movie that went on and on about a new house. Sounded like he had a pretty nice house to start with. And then he upscaled and he got a bigger and better house, and he's leaning into the camera all sincere about this. And of course you can get a bigger house. All you got to do is pull together the money. And you go get a bigger house, or maybe you get lucky and somebody leaves it to you in their will. Oh wait, that's not luck, that's thought management. But either way, all you've got is a bigger container for you and your feelings. It's not the be-all and the end-all that American consumerism can make us think it is. That if only you have the right stuff. And I started being real skeptical about this when I was very young, because I took a course right first day I walked into college, just about. I took a course in advertising. So I wanted to study journalism and stuff. And they said, okay, and they showed film strips. You remember film strips? They showed us film strips of commercials, and they said, look at how each one of these things in this commercial is a trigger for purchasing, for, you know, to motivate you to purchase things. Remember the one they showed us, there was a doctor, white coat, came in a room, a desk, books, lots and lots of books behind him. Probably Reader's Digest condensed books, but you couldn't read the spines, just books. This guy comes in, coat, stethoscope hanging around his neck, glasses, comes in, looks at the camera, takes the glasses off, leans into the camera, picks up a book, talks about recent studies, picks up this tome, you know, like that thick, just paper. You can reasonably be sure it's just white paper, you know, bound. And how every frame of this commercial had been tested by focus groups to see whether they were more or less likely to believe this guy, And he's leaning into the camera, and he's telling you what you should do. So I was skeptical about this. I've always been skeptical of authority when they tell you here's how it is. Here's what's going to fix everything. Take this pill or buy this car, whatever. It's going to fix everything. No. Here's what happens, really, I feel. And this is what New Thought really hangs its hat on, is when you go to the source of your self, the source of all creation, your maker, if you will, and you say, give me the best you got for me. You know what it gives you? Self-awareness. Self-awareness. Will there be more money in it for you? Maybe, if you use the self-awareness in a certain way. Will there be better health in it for you? Maybe, if you use the self-awareness in a certain way. Will you have more friends? Will you get along with people better? Very likely. Will you have inner peace? That can be a certainty. Inner peace is a backdrop to everything else that goes on in your life. That's what really delivers. That's the big secret. But it's not a flashy secret. It's not a sexy secret. It's not a compelling kind of secret like having billions of dollars is. Whoa, I want that. And a lot of times, and we go over this in our classes, a lot of times we want more stuff than we have for the purpose of impressing other people. And some of those people are actually alive today. You know, some of those people are actually in our lives today. We want the neighbors to come over. We want our coworkers to come over. Look at all of this that I manifested. Somehow it means I'm a better person than you thought I was. But a lot of the people that we want to impress with this stuff went to 5th grade with us. They may not even be on the planet anymore, and if they are, they haven't thought of us since then. And I joked about that with you a few weeks ago, saying that all the people you went to 5th grade with get together once a week and talk about you. But they don't really. you know. And if they could see me now, what's that old song? If they could see me now, that old gang of mine, you know. It's, wow, we never thought you'd amount to much. Look at you living in this mansion, you know, with all of this stuff. This is what we think we want, because then we'll feel okay about ourselves, except we won't, because they'll go home. And we'll say, well, that drug wore off. And now I need more stuff, and more stuff, and more stuff. And why this is a problem, and why I bring it up, is because if you get everybody doing this kind of thing, you ruin a perfectly good planet by digging up every square inch of it to try to provide more sustenance, more game, you know, for each of us. But there's an alternative to all of this: self-awareness, and it comes at a price. And this man, the Quaker teacher, he doesn't back down from this, from bringing up the price. It's going to cost you some immediate comfort. It's going to make you a little bit like Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth. You know, it's kind of inconvenient right now for me to know myself right in this moment, because I'm running on bluff. I'm putting it over on some people, we think to ourselves. You have this thing called imposter syndrome. You think you're not good enough for what you're doing or who you're with or whatever. So to know more about yourself kind of strikes, you know, a cold feeling passes through you until it goes away and leaves in its wake a light, a new light. See, you can't have it both ways. If you want to go within, if you want to know what's within you, you got to take what you find there. And that means doing forgiveness work. It means releasing some things, releasing attachments. When the Buddhists speak of releasing attachments, they don't mean leave your family, you know, that kind of thing. That's not quit your job. That's not what they're talking about. They mean attachments of meaning that have been made, predicated on past experience that's been difficult. Maybe in 5th grade they laughed at you because you didn't have your homework done, and they called on you, and you can still hear them at night when you lay there staring at the ceiling. You can still hear all the children's laughing voices in your head, and a feeling of shame and stupidity and inadequacy comes over you. Okay? That's good to know. That's good to know that that's why you're not sleeping nights. Now what you can do is turn around, look within, and say, I forgive myself for all the times that I've not risen to the occasion, for all the times that I've done something foolish or failed to do something useful or whatever. And you say that to yourself and you mean it, and a change comes over you and a light comes on. He puts it so beautifully. I sat there, read this one, I'm reading, blah, 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 I agree. And every now and then, you know, when you're reading, you come to a line and it just stops you. It just stops you. And you have to just, wow, you just have to be with it a moment. Maybe you'll have that kind of experience out of the line I'm about to deliver. Or maybe, as usually happens with lines like this, they're like, yeah, whatever. It's like somebody comes, you got to see this movie. You got to read, right? People do this. You go, oh, it's great. You got it. And you go see it, and you think, you know. But then you tell them your favorite song, and well, you see how it goes. But anyway, he had this line in here. He says, to experience what's beyond, you must turn within. To experience what's beyond, you must turn within. Now, on the face of it, that's real old news to us who are studying science of mind. But on the other hand, think of how often we look at what's beyond in a beyond kind of way, as if through a telescope. I want to know the larger dimension of life, and it's out there somewhere. And our songs say this, and our poetry says this, somewhere out there, somewhere out there. Everything that's out there is experienced in here. Which is why all the mystics of all the ages have said, each in their own way, each in their own tongue, you know, they've said you start the journey within the self. Whether you start it with purgation, whether you start it with worship, whether you start it with intense self-discovery, You start it within the self. That's where you're going to know God. If you go to the conventionally thought of Christian sort of heaven when you pass, which is vastly preferable to the alternative that often is offered, if you go there, your experience of that is going to be within the self. Okay? It's not going to come at you from outside. Oh, senses will register things. But your experience of it and the context of it is within the self. If somebody comes up, okay, less far away and remote and weird than that is somebody comes up to you and they say, I love you. Oh, my God. Where is that happening? It's happening within the self. Your appreciation of that, your recognition of that, and your comfort level with that happens within the self. Somebody comes to you and they say, I got a job for you to do. I need your help with something. Again, within the self. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Beauty is actually in the heart of the beholder. We determine these things as we go along in life. And the experience of that is called spirituality, and the adept practice of that is called mysticism. And this is something else that we've tended to do that I'm trying to fix in my own little way, is we look at writers like Rufus Jones and others through the ages and say, oh, well, he was a mystic. See, he had a lot of great things to say because he was a mystic. Like it's a club or something. Like it's a degree you can get. But we're all mystics if we tune into that channel, go to that frequency. The mystic is the person who recognizes the ubiquity of spirit in this world at this time. It's everywhere. He says, I guess it's time to wind down, I think. It's such a nice day, I should let you get out into it. He says this, chew on this week and see what you think about this. He says, instead of thinking about belief, like there's a theology, and do you or do you not believe it? So if you believe it, you're still separate from it. It's still objectified in some way. Instead of thinking about, is there a God who recognizes me? If there is, does God like me? Does God trust me? Does God value me? What kind of opinion does God, how about now? How about now? How about now? God, are you still liking me? Am I still doing instead of all of that stuff, much of which we've been taught in spiritual culture, pleasing God, because so much of religion in the West especially is about sin. It's not really about God, it's about sin. It's about can you manage to keep from sinning in the next 10 minutes, for crying out loud, Rather than that, try this. It's not something that's happening to you even. It's the place where you belong. It's the place where you belong. God is where you belong. In God. Having the experience of yourself in God is having the experience of God as a reality in your life. And if you can manage to do this, which we all can, or it wouldn't even occur to us that it's possible, we can further manage to have the kind of experiences described at various points in the Hebrew Testament, where we walk with him in the cool of the evening, where we come to the garden alone. You remember that old hymn? While the dew is still on the roses, and the voice we hear falling on our ear, the Son of God discloses, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me that I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. Isn't that a beautiful sentiment? Isn't that a beautiful sentiment? That's the kind of God I want. I'll meet you in the garden. This one will do nicely. I'll meet you in the garden, and we'll walk in the cool of the morning today, okay? And just commune. And I won't nag this God, and I won't pester this God, and I won't say, God, you know, give me a break here, and no, I just shine a light on me in my heart so that I can know more of who I am and glorify you. That is true worship. More on that, more on his idea of worship, which will blow your mind in a good way. More on that next week. Now let's know together there is one life, one power, one presence, this Spirit, everywhere. Just outrageously beautiful like today is. Shining down on us, but shining up from within us. And I affirm and know for each person here a greater sense of self, a greater sense of destiny and purpose and meaning and intention going forward, to be of maximum service to the world, to be a bringer of light, a giver of love, an intender of good. I know that this is possible because it's conceivable. I know that it is easier than we have imagined. I know that everything necessary to make this a reality in solid, tangible form is now flowing in and to and through each one of us. Whatever needs to be released as an emotional state, as a limitation of some kind, just easily floats away from us. Whatever needs to be absorbed finds its way to us. As easy as breathing this is, as natural as the pulse of our hearts. For this knowing, the way that it does manifest in form everywhere we turn, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
While I remember, and before the first front row gets a chance to remind me, is there anybody here for the first time? Pardon? Okay, all right. Yeah. Our usher, Marissa, is bringing you a little package of information. Okay, during the week we got lots going on. Every single day of the week, Reverend Lisa reads from the Science of Mind textbook around about 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:30. And in the evenings, I read from the daily guides in the Science of Mind magazine. As we come up to giving time, and I just want to thank everybody for all that you do. You can donate in person, you can donate online. We have lots of different ways. We take credit cards, checks, cash, everything's good. I just want you to know that your money that you donate is going to a really good cause, because our mission in life at this center and centers like it throughout the world is to make the world a better place. And I know you wouldn't be here unless you wanted to help make the world a better place. So your donations help us do that. So please say with me, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is. Reverend Lisa is traveling today, so we wish her a safe journey there and all the best on her journey.
So as we close out this service and open up into the rest of the day, I just invite you to allow the message, the words, and Spirit's own presence to infuse in your consciousness, settle into your subconscious, so that all of the wisdom, all of the guidance is available today and throughout the oncoming week. And knowing this, grateful for this, I release this word, so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust
I
it.
use it.
I use
and
it.
I love it.
And I love
so
it.
it is.
And so it is.